special guest tonight is Dapper Dan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. That was an excellent introduction. Thank you so much.
You have inspired a lot of people. How did you persevere when, as we saw, there was so much coming up against you?
You know, Ari, I think that when you're born poor and you go through early trials and tribulations, you always have that ability to bounce back. You know, I mean, everybody knows how to do good, but we learned early on how to do bad, so coming back was just in my blood.
We look at a young Donald Trump,
yes,
bad-mouthing Harlem. We looked at President Reagan singling out the drug epidemic. What did you learn from the excesses of crime and violence in that era that you had to survive?
You would have to have lived in it to understand, right? And at the time, when the RICO Act put a lot of minority people in jail, but at the time, there was a major change taking place. You can argue that we have a lot of men of color in the national penitentiaries and throughout the country now, but you have to have seen what a crack baby looks like. You know, when you see what a crack baby looks like, and if you go back in time to see what that is, to see a baby crying through the night and see families begging, walking away and leaving their children, you know, it's a different feel.
We have a culture, I would argue, across diverse communities where there is a glorification with the drug and gangster life, whether it's The Godfather, and that's Italian mafia, or the Harlem gangsters we're talking about, or Scarface. What do you say to young people or people who look at this, how to tap into that without being destroyed by it?
You know, that's the irony of the whole thing. The thing I'm trying to escape from, they were glorifying, you know, and it turned out the way that. But what the message I try to give the young guys is that, you know, we gangsters, we would never, and the culture was never about glorifying it and staying involved in it. The culture was about, with the gangsters, to escape it. And then the rappers came along and changed the message. They changed it to make it look glorified, make it look honey-coated, and it wasn't honey at all.
I want to take a page out of musician Nas, who's very famous, worked with many artists, talking about you, because so many people in the culture, in Harlem and beyond, knew about you, even after you were shut down. Take a look.
He had the foresight to do back then what they just started doing maybe 10 years, 5 years after him.
Would you be at the height you are now without the stars and without the streets? And which mattered more in supporting you?
It's a combination of both, because the stars are important because they interpret the culture of the street. And the reason the stars gravitated towards me is that I was the street. They were buying in to the life that I walked away from. So the credibility was enormous. I'm the guy in between who can take them there, who can give them that credibility, and that's why they gravitated towards me.
You write in here, the only people who were excited about hustling were people who didn't actually have to do it every day.
Exactly. The street has a light side and a dark side. If you don't understand that, you'll be there when it implodes. Even a person like myself is skilled and is knowledgeable of it myself. I had to realize that you cannot be in it and not of it. So eventually I had to withdraw. That's, you know, and when I went underground, I said, I have a bullet in my neck as a result of trying to be there, you know? There was days, I had a 3-story building on 125th Street, but I started out from a table on 125th Street. And when the brands rated me down, I always prepared myself to start all over again, and I went back to a table on 125th Street, and then underground for 20 years, man. So that's something I was prepared to do.
I want to ask you something a little funny. That's the exact story you described, because near the end of the book, everything's shut down, it looks dark, and you say you had trouble even selling a T-shirt at that very table.
Yes.
And I read that and I thought, here's someone, if I may, and tell me if I'm wrong, here's someone who has incredible pride, but very little ego.
Yeah, and that's the key. If you can bury your ego, then there's always possibilities. You know, I'm riding around in a Mercedes-Benz, Gucci'd out. I'm riding around with a Jeep, MCM out. I mean, I'm the talk of the town. But I had to learn to swallow that and go back to where I started at. and start all over again. And that incident you're talking about, when I had to start all over, I was out there and tour buses was coming to Harlem on 125th Street, and I was trying to sell T-shirts. I counted 144 buses and didn't sell one T-shirt.
In a single day?
In a single day. And I was determined to turn that around. The next year I looked up, I had $100,000. So that's what perseverance is. But I knew that I could do that.
Did you think you'd be here at this age, at this height?
My end mission is to talk about what we're talking about now. I've seen it. I'm the last generation that's seen Harlem before a drug epidemic, and I need to remind people of what we are. This is not who we are. All the children that's growing up now and the young men that's growing up now, they're growing up in a drug culture. And I have to tell a story. Fashion is my platform to tell this biggest story, and that's what I want to go on to do. But I think the devastating effect and the root of a lot of young black men and Hispanic young men in jail has everything to do with the culture that grew out of the drug epidemics.
It's a fascinating story that you tell here and that you're here to continue to lead on. I appreciate you coming by the beat. The book is Dapper Dan, Made in Harlem, a memoir. Dapper Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.